If you're a regular viewer of Revisited, you may remember our edition on Cajun country. We took you to meet these Americans trying to keep French heritage alive in the US state of Louisiana. Well, today we're going to search out once again that French heritage in another part of the American continent, further north on the border between USA and Canada, a region that used to be known as New France. In fact, the French presence here is even older than that found in Louisiana. It was under Francois I that the first French explorers set foot in the region. In 1534, Jacques Cartier explored the Gulf of Lawrence. Later, in 1608, Quebec City was founded. The descendants of the first settlers, the Acadians, later populating Louisiana. France then lost the territory in the 18th century to Great Britain, then to the USA and Canada. But still, the influence of French culture, and above all, the French language, is still very much alive. Well, Francois Rouillet and Shona Bhattacharya revisit Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, Quebec and Ontario. New France for France 24.
There was a long history of fishermen coming from Europe, from all over Europe, Spain, Portugal, Basque Country, France, England. They would come here in summer.
Long before Jacques Cartier and Christopher Columbus, it's on board sailing ships like the Blue Nose II that cod fishermen arrived on the shores of the New World.
They would set up summer camps, and as soon as winter arrived, they'd leave. There were no permanent settlements here.
Drawn to the fertile waters and lands of these unknown shores, French King Henry IV's men attempted to settle for the long run. In the summer of 1605, Pierre du Guet de Mons and his cartographer Samuel de Champlain lowered their anchor in this promising bay.
Champlain had said in his diaries that the Port Royal Basin was wide, deep, and protected from the ocean by a mountain range. It was a perfect location. He said that the entire French Royal Navy could anchor here no problem. That means they were thinking of the future. A large number of people across the North American continent had ancestors who passed just 100 meters from where we are now.
Rebuilt as it once was, this Port Royal trading post marks the starting point of a French America that went on to be called New France.
How do we know what the trading post looked like? Well, we have an account from Samuel de Champlain himself. He's the one who drew a sketch in great detail of what the trading post looked like.
At first, the French Americans were less than 50. They traded and survived thanks to their exchanges with the local population.
Isn't it beautiful? It's a moose hide. And look at the size of this hide, from the biggest animal in this forest. This is why this trading post came to be. It was a fur trading post. At the time, in Europe, beaver fur hats were in fashion, a suede that was made with this fur. So since there were no more beavers in Europe, they came to America to hunt them. But in general, it wasn't the French who would hunt them. It was the Mi'kmaq, the indigenous people of the area. So they trusted their expertise, their knowledge of the climate and the animals in the region. In exchange for the furs, the Mi'kmaq were interested in getting French tools, cloth, and even French bread. Of course, everyone likes bread.
Port Royal, the first trading post colony of North America, was the starting point of a large conquest. At its height, in the mid-18th century, New France stretched from Acadia to Florida.
The French starting point in the Americas was here. They created strong links with the local people, the Mi'kmaq. a friendship and a political alliance. Then, after 1710, Acadia fell, the English conquest of Acadia, and then later it became the province of Nova Scotia.
Under English rule, the Acadians, the descendants of the French colonizers, were deported in the thousands to Europe, Quebec, and Louisiana. Some made it back, imposing a cohabitation of languages and cultures. Today, some 5% of Nova Scotia residents speak French. On the other side of French Bay, renamed the Bay of Fundy, Acadians are still making their voices heard. Today is the Tintamarre in Moncton, New Brunswick's capital. A show of force by the Francophone minority, bringing together several thousand Acadians every 15th of August. And here, people speak Chiac.
OK, moi j'ai parké mon cœur dans la driveway.
Ramasse tes arbres, qui veut dire ramasse ton linge.
Les tailleurs d'auto, la gasoline, c'est vraiment cher. Ça, on mêle beaucoup les deux langues. Ça fait un peu, c'est ça que le Chiac.
Riding high on a real cultural wave, Chiac has even found itself an ambassador in Acadia.
Oh my God, bonsoir, Moncton!
At just 32 years old, Lisa Leblanc is a star in the Acadian community and beyond on the internet with her Chiac disco. A disco beat and homegrown lyrics, it's a formula that went viral.
Et là, j'aimerais ça vous chanter une tune qui s'appelle Gossip.
Born in Rosaireville in the north of the province, Lisa Leblanc has been singing since she was 16, in English or in one of New Brunswick's French dialects.
If you go around New Brunswick, it's going to be very different. Like the northern Acadians have a completely different accent from the southern Acadians. In Nova Scotia, the province right underneath, well, there they speak Acadian. So it's a different way of speaking French, a different kind of accent.
That mixed heritage is a source of pride for New Brunswick, where more than a third of residents claim to be bilingual English-French.
Our ancestors really fought so that we could speak French, and I believe language and culture are always very related. They live together, really. So for me, well, the way to live this way was to sing this way. But when I wrote my first album, I wasn't writing it for the language to survive. I didn't even know until other people spoke to me about the fact that, one, I have an accent, and two, I sing in French. So I think as soon as you make music in French here, it's seen as a political gesture.
While Acadian youths may sometimes feel that debates about language are outdated, others believe they must fight to keep French alive. According to its prime minister, the front line is neighboring Quebec.
I'm the only head of state in North America that represents a majority of francophones. It's therefore my duty, my responsibility to protect and promote French. That's what we're doing with this bill, this law, that we can now call Law 96.
François Legault, who belongs to the CAQ, a nationalist party, says he fears that with immigration, Quebec will become like Louisiana.
Immigration is a source of strength, and integration into our beautiful nation is a mutual gift we give.
In short, in Quebec, the Prime Minister believes French could give way to English, as it did for Acadians or Cajuns in Louisiana in the United States.
I don't like the term Louisianisation because I think it shows a lack of respect for Cajuns, for the Creoles of Louisiana, who were, in the end, more or less forced to anglicize. We're currently on the grounds of the New France government because before the Frontenac Chateau, there was the Saint-Louis Chateau until the English victory of 1760, and it's a perfect example of the not always peaceful coexistence between francophones and anglophones in Canada.
Historian Yves Frenette is the specialist on francophone migration to North America and the survival of the French language on this mainly English-speaking continent.
The English presence is still visible in the city of Quebec, in its architecture. Here, we're at the Citadel. It was fortified at the beginning of the 19th century by the British. The names of the streets, some store signs, but the Anglophone population of Quebec has fallen quite a lot, and there's just a handful of people now. They were already worried by the linguistic law of 1977, and they're a lot more anxious about Law 96.
Law 96 makes speaking French mandatory at work and in public displays, among other places, and is a cause of concern for many English speakers in the province.
Pour 78, contre 29, aucune abstention.
Merci. En conséquence, le projet de loi numéro 96, loi sur la langue officielle et commune du Québec, le français, est adopté.
The reform is billed as the, quote, biggest win for the French language in close to 50 years. That's because Quebec sees itself as the bastion of French-speaking Canada, where for the first time the federal goal of 4.4% francophone immigration was reached. But Yves Frenette doubts it'll be enough to consolidate the French language in the country.
The question will undoubtedly arise. Will francophone immigrants outside Quebec remain francophone? Because they're a minority too. And even more than for people for whom French is their first language, they'll be encouraged to switch to English to make a living.
In the past, New France may have stretched to the rivers of Saskatchewan, according to military archives. But now, few French-speaking communities remain in Western Canada. Outside Quebec, many of them are in Ontario.
It's really dynamic, very Anglophone. You have to live fast, eat fast, talk fast, get up early.
Gredora grew up in Port-au-Prince, Haiti.
Good morning. I'm fine, thank you. Do you speak French? No?
No, I don't.
Okay. Thank you. Can I have a breakfast taco?
Yeah, sure.
When she arrived in Toronto just a few weeks ago, Gredora didn't know a word of English.
Go, please. Yeah.
As I'm living with an English speaker, and I always need to do things outside in English, I'm learning.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Once she has her diploma, Gredora wants to stay and work in Canada.
I chose Ontario so I could go to a French-speaking university. That way, I can study in French, but in an English environment. So that'll allow me to learn English, which will help me in my professional life.
Gredora is one of the very first students to attend Ontario's French University, or UOF, where 150 to 200 students are getting training in administration, education, or digital culture. It opened in 2021 after large protests by Franco-Ontarians.
Unis pour l'université! Unis pour l'université!
The province's conservative government planned to scrap the project. In the end, Ottawa allowed the university to open.
The university is hosting its first seminar today. So I'm volunteering at reception.
In less than 4 years, UOF has become a symbol of the French community's resilience in the province.
Bonjour. Salut. Ça va?
Ça va et toi?
Bien, merci. Donc, pour l'activité de fin de session.
The years of protest by Franco-Ontarians were before Gredora and her student union friends' time, but they're proud to be a part of their legacy and vow to keep fighting.
For 30 years, the French University of Ontario couldn't open its doors. And now, thanks to the university, we can show the reach of Ontarian French directly in Ontario. That's our advantage.
Okay, I think we're all good. You can make the report and we'll see each other at the next meeting. Okay, perfect.
The province's school's aim is to create a network of French universities in Ontario, to fuel the fire of the French language in Canada, and with it, the legacy of New France. According to the latest polls, despite a slight decline since 2016, French remains the first official language of more than 1 in 5 Canadian residents.
François Rouet and Shona Bhattacharya revisiting New France for France 24. Well, that's all from this week's edition. Don't forget, of course, you can catch it and the previous editions as well on our website at france24.com. There's more news coming up very shortly. Thanks for watching.